Hey everybody, Ryan Ashley here, and I'm so excited to be making DIY holiday hair accessories with you.
Are you ready for Christmas?
I love making DIY hair accessories because I get so excited about all those holiday parties that are right around the corner, and we always want to add a little something special to our look. So let's go ahead and look at what we'll be needing for today's activity. So what you'll need today is a jewelry hammer, bench block and bench block pad to go along with that hammer, a bent chain nose plier, round nose plier, chain nose plier, flush cutters, and then for the materials we will need 16 gauge wire. I'm using a gold tone, and also 26 gauge wire. This is what we'll be using to wrap all of your favorite sparkly beads around the brass hair accessory. And you're also going to need little beads of your choice. You can use tiny spacer beads, tiny gemstones, you can use check glass, whatever your heart desires, just something that's small enough to fit right along this piece. All right, so I'm starting out with about 5 to 6 inches of the 16 gauge brass wire and about 5 to 6 inches of the 26 gauge wire. This is what we are going to hammer and shape into your hairpin. And this is what we're going to use, the 26 gauge wire, to wrap all of your favorite beads around the finished hammered hairpiece. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and kind of bend this into shape. I actually like to use the handle of my hammer to get a nice curve right in the middle of the 16 gauge brass wire. And you can pick any point that you want. I kind of go a little bit toward the end because it's got a little bit more girth there, and I wrap it around. And this is something that I do a little bit of shaping with. So we're not done after this step. We're gonna kind of pinch it, pry it, pull it, hammer it, just gonna get it perfect. So now I'm kind of pulling it open like that because I wanna get a shape sort of like that. These can be different lengths, they can be different widths. It really depends on the look you're going for and also your hair. For me, I don't use these to hold my hair up. I go ahead and fix my hair and then I stick them into my finished do to finish my look. So now I'm getting it kind of right where I want it. And then I'm going to go ahead and flush cut the extra. And there's the beginning of my hair stick. So let's go ahead and hammer it. Get my bench block and my pad. And for this, I always like to hold the edge so that way it doesn't fly across the room when I'm hammering it. So we'll just start hammering. And you'll see your wire starts to poke up. That's totally normal. We'll turn it over and make sure that everything ends up flat before we're done. Turn it around to get this part as well. And now we'll turn it over. It looks like this one is still kind of poking up a little bit, so I'm going to turn it over again and just much more lightly kind of encourage that to stay in shape. And you can kind of do that a few times, however you need to. And then sometimes I even use my hands to just go ahead and get everything right where I want it. Now, you'll see that this side is has a little more personality. So I'm going to use my chain nose pliers and just use them to kind of help me finish that shape. So I'm going to grip it and just barely push that to one side. I'll show you here as well. So this is curving in, so I'm just gonna grip with my chain nose plier and then lightly pull this out because I really want that nice kind of architectural consistent shape. And it looks like I can do a little bit more at the bottom too. So just very light movements. The key to working with wire, I think, is really small adjustments, so that way you don't overbend something. So now that we have this shape, I can go ahead and move my bench block out of the way, and I can grab my 26 gauge wire. So I have decided to use a mix of little faceted garnet beads and little faceted metal spacer beads because I want to add a little bit of color to my piece, but I really want it to catch the light. I want that gold that you see so often in holiday accessories, but you can also use silver tone. So if what you have at home is 16 gauge silver tone and 26 gauge silver tone, you are good to go. First thing I'm going to do is wrap the edge of this piece. So I'm going to hold my wire in place, and you see how I'm kind of actually looping it there. If you try to work all the time up here, you're gonna end up pushing the wire through and pulling it through. It's a little bit quicker if you can kind of loop it under. So I'm going to wrap. And I always like to wrap a few times when I'm starting a piece like this, 3 to 5. Okay, so I've got about 5 wraps there. So now I'm going to add my first bead. I'm going to start with a gold one. Okay, so I put my gold spacer bead on the wire. And then with my hand, my finger here, I'm just going to hold this in place and then kind of pinch it and wrap the wire around. So you see how it kind of holds that bead in place, and now I'm going to do 3 wraps between each one. I really like the look of 3 wraps. One feels a little bit flimsy, doesn't exactly hold things in place, but then if I add more than that, it starts to look a little bit more like a sunburst instead of a cluster, which that might be what you're going for, and that's totally cool. I like to keep my beads a little bit closer together. So now I'm grabbing my red gemstone bead and putting that on. And pinching it in place just the same way, bending the wire over, and I'm going to do that 3-time wrap. One more time. There we go. Now it's just staying right in line, and now back to my gold. So I'm just going to alternate like this, using a spacer bead, using one of those small faceted gemstone beads until I get to the other side, and then we'll finish, we'll do our final wrap, and we'll snip. I think there are lots of different ways you can take this idea and create variations on it. One thing I've done in the past is I've actually created a hair stick that only has one piece. Instead of a loop of brass, I've just done almost like a little hat pin. So there are lots of different directions you can take this in, and I think it's a lot of fun to just try different things and see what you like best. The thing I like about incorporating gemstones as well is that it can really help tie your outfit together. Even if you're not going to a party, I really like having a darker stone because especially for fall and winter, I find myself wearing a lot of darker colors, and this kind of gives you a little pop. And it's just a subtle touch because it's in your hair. Just a couple more to go before I line up right with the other side. Now it looks like I really had the perfect amount of wire, so if you plan on doing more wraps on your hairpiece, you might want to consider pulling out like 10 to 12 inches instead of 5 to 6. So again, I'm pinching that in place because I kind of like it to stand up against the brass instead of coming down and overlapping it. So that's why you see me kind of fiddling with it right here, because I want to get it pinched in just the right spot so I can wrap next to it. And now I'm ready to finish, so I'm just doing my final 5 wrap. And then we'll be able to clip it and pinch those little ends in, and it'll be ready to wear. So now, here we are. We've ended our wrapping, and I'm just going to take my flush cutter and snip the wire really close to the piece. Same thing on the other side, snipping it really close to the piece. We still want to make sure none of those ends are poking out, so using my chain nose pliers, I'm going to just barely pinch it in. I'm doing it softly because I don't want to crush my wrap. I still want that nice coiled look, so I'm just putting a little pressure right there at the end. And then same thing on the other side. A file isn't a must for this activity, but I know it helps me feel better about wearing my hairpiece when I just give the edges here a little, just a kick with the file, just to make sure I have no sharp edges, it doesn't pull up my hair, it doesn't, hurt me or anything like that. So I'm just gonna lightly kind of file these edges. I'm doing it at an angle because what I really want is those sharp edges to just blunt a bit. And this is really something I do by feel. It's not a certain number of times. I just kind of check as I'm going, and if it feels good, then I'm done. Okay, that one feels pretty good. No sharp edges there. One more little. You can also use a wire rounder if you'd rather. Some people use a Dremel to get these ends nice and smooth. I kind of like the tactile feel of the file. I like how much control I have. So we're almost there. And when you're filing, you might pull your piece out of shape a little bit. I'm gripping it pretty well here, so I might have a little bit of shape change that happens, but we can bend it right back into shape. Get one more there. Okay, so I'm gonna put that down, and there we go. Perfect. So you don't even need a mirror. I already have my hair pinned up with bobby pins, so I'm just going to find a spot and poke it in. Easy. By the way, if you plan on doing a DIY wedding in the future, this is the perfect solution for your bridal hair and for your bridesmaids. So if you want to go ahead and create the activity like I did today, you might want to grab a jewelry hammer, bench block, and bench pad. You'll also definitely need your flush cutter. Now in this video, I didn't actually use my bent chain nose plier, my round nose plier, or my chain nose plier, but I did use them in the beginning when I was creating my first and second one when I was practicing. So these might be really helpful for you along the way. You also don't need a file. However, I really like filing those ends. So go ahead and grab a file. Emery board at home will even work if you don't have a professional jeweler's file. I used 26 gauge gold tone wire, 16 gauge gold tone wire, and I used a variety of small faceted beads. I used spacer beads and small gemstone beads, but it's totally up to you. Thanks so much for making DIY holiday hair accessories with me. If you want to go ahead and get supplies like the ones I used in the video today, go ahead and check out the description below. That's where we have all the links. And then like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any future videos.
Are you ready?